Hello everyone, hope that you all are doing well. Today, before jumping to the content of the video, let me request you something. I'm making videos of Spring Boot web application and REST application concepts, and as we go ahead, I will be coding some idea based projects live on the videos using all the concepts that I'm explaining right now. So, if you feel my videos to be informative and you learn something from it, do subscribe the channel and also share among your contacts so that this knowledge could be reach many and also motivate me to come up with such concepts. So today in this video I will be explaining you how we can write JUnit test cases and test our web application REST application. Here I will be using the code which I used which I coded in the video of CRUD application. If you haven't watched the video, the link would be in the description. Now let's go to our IDE and check the project structure. So the project structure looks like this. When I go to my controller, these were my controllers written for the CRUD operation performance, and so this was my controller. And when you notice in the project structure, you can see that there is a test package as well. So this test package is by default created by Spring Boot application. So when we go inside this class which is being created by default, there is just a method called as context load and nothing else. So in this class only we would be writing unit test cases and testing our database by simply inserting data, updating data and all, by performing some operations. These operations can be performed without even making your controller endpoints, so that your DB is working. You can test it from here only. So let's get started. Let's write some code here. So as I was using an employee entity, right? I made an employee entity here. So we will be inserting. I'll be performing 3 test cases here. So I'll be inserting data into the database, writing a test method. Another would be I would be fetching all the data present in the database, and the third would be that I will be deleting the data from the database using the ID of the employee. So let's get started, and first of all I would need the employee repository that I made. So I'll simply auto wire that employee repository. Simply I can say employee repository emp repo, right? So this is my employee repository. So now how we write the method to test is, first of all we need to write an annotation that is called as @test. Now you can see that @test is a candidate of package org.junit.jupyter.api. So it is a JUnit package annotation which we are using. It has been it is default provided by Spring Boot. Now we'll write a method to actually insert some data. So I'll say public, I'll say void test insert, and I'll write a method. So first of all, all the things that all the operations we'll be performing here, the data would be hard coded data. So first of all I need to make an employee object. So I'll say employee emp equals new employee, and if I, yes, it is made now. Now I have to add data. So ID is automatically generated, so you don't need to actually add the ID. As we hit the endpoint through the postman as well, we don't give the ID in the database in the request, right? So we'll add the name of the employee. So the name of the employee is suppose Raman, and we'll say emp.get, sorry, I'm getting it, no, I have to set the employee database, sorry, set name. So I'll say set name, and I'll insert the name as Raman, and I'll say set designation, I'll set it as software engineer, and I have to set the email ID. So I'll set the email ID as raman19@gmail.com. So this is my email ID. Now the data is being provided, the hard-coded data is being provided. Now we will have to use our employer repo to update the data in the database, right? So we'll be using employer repo.save, and we'll be saving our employee object. So now, to know whether the data is being updated or not, let me take this into a employee object, emps, right? Now, to check whether this test case should have some concrete that okay, now it is said that the data has been inserted into the database. Now that test case should be passed. So now I'll be using assertions. So it's also a JUnit package, assertion.assert not null, and I will say emp repo dot find by id, sorry, it's gone out, dot find by id, and I will be saying emps dot get id, right? Now if the id is being if the employee data is being inserted, we will have the id of the employee. So if that id is present in the database, this test case should pass, right? So this is a simple test case to check the insertion is working or not. So to run the test case, you can simply select it, and you can as there is only single test case, so you can also click here and run as JUnit test case, right? If you have more than one test case, you can simply select it and right click and run the test case. So the test case is running. We'll get to know here that the test case is failing, or there is some error, failure, or it has successfully ran. So let us see what is the result, and it has started to run now. Yes, the test has passed. So the data is in the database, right? Now I would be testing another that is to test whether the data is present or not in our database. So I'll be saying public void test get all data, right? So I'll be making this method, and now simply what I should do is I should make a list of employees, right? List of employees emps equals repository dot find all, right? Now it will return all the data, right? I'm using find all. I should say, yes, I should say find all, right? Now this is an iterable, so I should not use list, I should use iterable, right? Yes, it will satisfy it. The data present in the database we have fetched through find all. Now to make this test know that how the test would be successful if the data is present in the list, right? So we'll be using assert again, assert that, and we'll be saying emps dot size, that the size of the list is greater than 0. If the size of the list is greater than 0, the list that is being returned here, then we can say that there is some data present in the database, right? Now let me select this and run only this specific test case. So I'll run this test case. Let us see whether it passes or not. Okay, so the test case has started to run now, and the result is, just a minute, the query will be fired. Yes, now it will run. Okay, the test case has run and it is successful. So the data was present in the database. There was some data, as we have already inserted some data, so there was some data, that's why the test case has passed, right? Now I'll write another test case. So @test, and I'll say I public void test, I'll say delete. I am writing test delete, test get all data, test insert. You can write it, you can name it anyway. Just I am following a pattern that I'll be using test first and then the operation name, right? So you can name it anyway, right? So now we need to delete it. So first of all, we'll insert the data, right? So I'll take this data only and I'll save the data first, and then using the ID that has been returned, I'll be deleting the data, right? So I am saying I'm changing some data here, Raman software engineer 1 and gmail.com, it's 195 194. Okay, and now I will say I will perform an operation as employee repo dot delete by id. Now delete by id is a void method, so it doesn't return anything. So now I am using emps dot get id, right? So I am using emps dot get id. What it is saying, change to get all. Oh, I've used get all again. It's get by id, right? So I have deleted the data. Now we need to check whether the data is present or not. So I'll use assert that employee repo dot exists by id. So I'm checking that whether this id exists in the database or not. So id is emps.getID, right? And if it is false, right, then only it will get successful. Yes, if the data is being deleted, if this condition is false, if this condition returns some data, then this test should fail with this particular id. If it doesn't return it, then this test case should pass. So let me select this test case and run this test case. So let me, oh, I haven't saved the file. So okay, we should wait for running the test case. It is started to run now. Yes, the test case has passed, right? So I have inserted the data and this data might have returned some id. So that id, with that id I have performed delete operation, and then I have checked whether this id exists in the database or not. So this is how you can actually test the functionalities of your repo without even using an endpoint, without even declaring your controller, right? You can simply connect with your repo and you can hard code the data to save, update, delete. All those operations could be tested writing the test cases here. So this was it from the video. If you love to learn this skill, and if any queries ahead, you can mention in the comments. I would love to read it and love to give replies to. And do like, share and comment on the video, and do subscribe the channel for much more of these kinds of concept videos and some upcoming idea based project coding videos. So we'll meet in the next video. Thank you so much.